All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see all of our incredible Appia users joining us for today's webinar. Thank you so much for coming. We've got some very exciting material for you today. We'll be reviewing a couple of Appia's newer features, Worksheets and Query Builder. Some of you may already be familiar with these features, in which case this will truly be a review. For others, this might be your first time hearing about them. In that case, you may find this information very useful for your team's day-to-day operations going forward. Now for a little housekeeping before we get started. Throughout today's webinar, you will be muted. There is a question and answer feature located at the bottom of your screen that we will be monitoring. Please use this to ask any questions that you have throughout the webinar. We will address as many questions as we can, and any questions we are not able to answer will be compiled and all registered participants will receive an email in about a week. Finally, we understand we are all using Zoom with different internet connections, which may bring some challenges. You may experience connection issues, but know that a recording of this webinar will be available within a week. Speaking of challenges with remote work, if you do hear any barking in the background, I'd like to apologize ahead of time on behalf of Willow. Working from home means that I get to see that adorable face more often, but she loves to protect our home. So thank you for your patience and understanding. So now that we've introduced pets, we may as well introduce ourselves. My name is Michael Helm. I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. I work with engineering firms and local agencies to explore the ways that e-construction solutions can help them improve their daily processes from bidding all the way to project closeout. We also have Holly Sprinkle with us. She'll be walking us through demonstrations of both features today. Holly, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Holly Sprinkle. I am a senior business specialist on the customer success team. So I work with customers that are new to Appia and Doc Express and help them during their onboarding process.
Thanks, Holly. Happy to have you with us today. So for today's agenda, we'll start off with worksheets. I'll give a brief overview of what worksheets are and what they can do for your inspectors. Then I'll hand it over to Holly to show us a demonstration of the worksheets feature in action. We'll finish up worksheets with a question and answer session where we'll answer some questions from our viewers. Remember to use that Q&A feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen to ask us questions. Then we'll move on to query. I'll actually cover what the query builder can accomplish for your team. Holly will show us an example of building a custom query in Appia, and then again, we will finish out that topic with another Q&A session on query. And then finally, we'll tie things up with a recap of everything that we've covered in today's webinar, as well as some closing thoughts and reminders. Without any further ado, let's jump right into worksheets. So what are worksheets and why should you be using them? Well, traditionally, when inspectors log quantities into an Appia daily report for items that have units like square yardage or cubic yardage, they typically have to take 2 to 3 measurements, do a little math on paper, and then enter the resulting quantity into Appia. With worksheets enabled, inspectors will have an in-app calculator where they enter their measurements, and then Appia calculates the quantity based on the contract item's units. It's a great time saver for those inspectors that find themselves constantly switching to their calculator app or putting their mobile device down to do some math on paper. Now, worksheets can be used on a project-by-project basis. It can also be set up at the global level if you want to use it on all of your projects. To do this, your system administrator will need to start from the My Projects page and navigate to System Management, Settings, and then Construction, where they'll find a checkbox for turning worksheets on and off. So now that we've covered the background information for worksheets, I'll turn it over to Holly so she can walk us through an example. Holly, take it away.
Thank you, Michael. As Michael mentioned, worksheets do need to be turned on at that global level by your system administrator. Once that is turned on, though, the nice thing is that your worksheets will be available for each project as well. I did also want to say, though, when you're turning on that setting at the global level, that is a setting that cannot be changed once a project is under construction. So if you think you have some projects coming up that you're going to want to use worksheets on, A best practice is to just go ahead and turn on that worksheets feature, keep that checkbox checked in your construction project settings. That way, if you decide you do want to give worksheets a try, you have that option available to you. Unfortunately, if you turn that setting off and you start a project, you won't be able to change that later. So I do recommend that you just leave that setting turned on, and then you have the option project by project whether or not you want to use worksheets. So once you have those worksheets turned on at the global level, you will have worksheets that are now available project by project as well. So you do have to add the worksheets, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But let me back up and show you where I am and where you can manage your worksheets. So I am in a project within Appia, and once you have a project open, to get to the Worksheets tab, you'll click on More, and then you'll see that Worksheets button in this left navigation panel within Appia. So you're going to click on Worksheets, and then you'll come to the screen where I just was. In this screen, you'll see any of the projects that are available in this particular Appia project. If you needed to add additional worksheets, you can do so by clicking that Add Worksheet button in the top right corner of the screen. When you click that button, this pop-up with all of the available worksheets will pop up. You could simply click on one and click Add, and that worksheet will be added to this project. So anything that you have, any worksheets that you have made available at that global level, you can also add to these projects. The next step, once you've added the worksheets that you're going to use or you're interested in using, the next step is to associate items to that worksheet. What I mean by that is you're telling Appia, these are the items that I want measured or calculated in this particular way. So for example, let's say that you have items in your item list that should only be calculated using square feet. You're going to click these three buttons, those kind of three dots stacked on top of each other. Once you do that, this little menu pops up, and it's going to say Associate Items. Once you click Associate Items, you'll see all of the items that are available for this particular project in Appia. It's quick and easy to add items to the worksheet. You're just going to click these check boxes on this left side next to the line number, and that will make that association between your items and the particular worksheet that you've selected. There is also a time saver here, kind of a quick tip I would like to show you all as well. If you click on your advanced search, which is going to be that accordion button in the center of your screen, once you click the advanced search, you'll see this unit option. You can search your items by unit. So if you had a particular unit of measure and you knew that, hey, all of these items that are measured by this particular type of unit need to be calculated using whatever worksheet you've picked, that's a quick and easy way to sort your items and then get that item association complete for this particular worksheet. So you'll go through, you'll make those item associations, and then what's nice is from this point forward, whenever Appia needs to do any calculations with that particular item, that will happen automatically for you as well. So taking the time to associate those items will end up saving you time as the project continues. So that's how you set up the worksheet piece, and you will need to do that before you start logging your daily work in Appia. But once that's set up, the next part of it will be like, how does this end up looking on a day-to-day basis? And I'm going to show you that part of it next. So I'm going to go to Daily Activities. Again, that's in that left navigational bar in Appia. So I'm clicking on Daily Activities. The calendar view comes up. You can see that I've got a daily report started for yesterday. So I'm going to go back into that daily report. This would work the same way, starting a new daily report as well. So in this existing daily report, I'm going to click Edit and show you how these items end up looking like when you're using worksheets, posting your items. So I've got my daily report open. You can see the tabs, of course, across the screen that you all are very used to working through. I'm going to click on the Item Postings tab and show you how this works. So this particular daily report, I've already added some items to it, but I'm going to show you how I did that piece. So just like you normally would when you're adding an item to your daily report, you're going to click that Add button. The pop-up will come up that shows you, again, all the available items in Appia. Of course, you can do your search, or you can just click through and add these items to your daily report, whatever you'd like to add. Once you finish selecting things, you'll click Add Items. And the items I just added were added to the bottom of this list. But just taking a look at this item list, everything that I've added to this particular daily report, you can see that some of my items have worksheets, some don't. So the items that have worksheets, you'll see this calculator icon and the Use Worksheets clickable area. So scrolling through, you can quickly see when you're looking at your item list which items do and do not have worksheets. So this plastic pavement marking item, this one does not have a worksheet. Notice you don't see that calculator or that little Use Worksheets option. So that's a quick, easy way to tell, okay, which of my items are using worksheets, which of my items are not using worksheets. So what you can do next, once you have added items that are using worksheets, is if you click Worksheets, this little slide out menu is going to pop up on the right-hand side of your screen. It gives you a quick reminder of what the formula is for this particular calculation. What's kind of a nice feature here is you can enter your dimensions or however you're measuring, depending on which worksheet it is. And if you click enter, Appia is going to preview the math for you. So it's going to quickly tell you, in case you need to make adjustments, what exactly is going to go onto the daily report. So that little preview for the math can be helpful sometimes as well. Then if you click Use Worksheet, you'll get back to your item list. So it's pretty quick and easy to add these items to your daily report and then to double check and see exactly how the worksheet is being used. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that, sometimes these items, as we all know, it's not always exactly, perfect measurements, a perfectly shaped item that you need to add. And Appia does allow you the flexibility to make adjustments as needed for irregular items that don't neatly fit, into your typical measurements or typical unit, if that's what you need to do. So if you need to manually override one of these worksheet items, you can make your adjustment in your quantity placed column. So I'm going to change this one. And then once you tab out of that area, Appia will save that change. And notice here that making that manual change, I get this little manual override flag, this yellow box that says manual in the middle. That gives you a quick visual indicator, a quick cue that, hey, this particular item has been changed. It's not following the exact way the worksheet usually works. There was a manual change for whatever the reason was. So Appia does allow you that flexibility for those items that may need to, be a little bit different for whatever reason. So that manual flag will follow the item in all of the item ledgers and other records for the item, so that you do have that cue that something changed a little bit with that particular item. All right, so I clicked save and I'm back in the daily report overview. And if you scroll down, you'll see what you're used to. So, it'd be your summary of your personnel, your equipment, and then we're back to the summary of the item postings. What's nice about this page when you're using worksheets is if you click on your item line number, you'll come to this area that is a sort of overall item history of what's been happening with this particular item in Appia. So I'll have my item history, which you all are used to seeing. I'll have my quick summary of all of the different daily reports where this particular item has been used. I'll have any payments that this item was associated with as well. And then coming back to the worksheets, I've got this great list of every time this worksheet was used for this particular item. Now notice that that yellow flag, that manual flag, is here as well. So again, that gives me that quick reminder that, hey, this particular item, when we entered it, there was a deviation. So you can see the station information, if that's something that you use in your organization. You have the length and width, if that's applicable, depending on which worksheet it is, and all of the rest of the math based on that worksheet. So this can be a really helpful tool to kind of get a look at, how this particular item was used and how it was measured. There are two things you can do with this information as well, depending on what this looks like for you. If you click this export button, and you won't be able to see it as I do this just because of how I have my screen shared, but if you click that export button, you're going to get an Excel file that has all of this information for you. I know a lot of you need to copy and paste this information from the Excel files, to other applications or other types of forms. So this can be a great way to kind of kickstart that for you, give you a head start for that work, or any other reason that you'd need that Excel file. So this information is savable, of course, when you have it in Excel, and you can add any of the other information from Appia that you might need associated with that item. That same information is also available in PDF format. So this reports button, if you click on it and click on the item history, the worksheet history, it will give you that same information, but in a PDF format. So that's a quick look at how worksheets work in Appia and some of the things that you can do and that Appia will do for you once you have those worksheets enabled. And Michael, I'm going to let you open the floor for questions.
Thanks, Holly. We'll go ahead and address some of the questions that have been coming in. As a reminder, you can ask questions at the bottom of your screen using the Q&A feature. So for our first question, is there a way to view the measurements that an inspector enters into the worksheet calculator?
Yeah, absolutely. So Michael, that ledger that we were just looking at the end of the worksheets demo, that ledger in your item history that shows you every time that worksheet was used, again, that's exportable as in that Excel file or as a PDF. So that's a great way to quickly see those measurements.
Great. Thanks for that answer, Holly. All right, for the next question, this one says, when do you recommend setting up worksheets if I choose to set them up at the project level? Should that be done before I log work, or can I change my mind mid-project?
Unfortunately, you cannot change your mind mid-project. So this is a feature that does not remain dynamic in Appia. So you do need to make that decision before the project advances to construction. So that's really the reason why we recommend that if you're considering using worksheets and you check that box in your construction settings to allow worksheets, if you don't ultimately end up using worksheets, it's not going to hurt anything or impact anything else in Appia if you have that setting turned on, but it does prevent the scenario from happening that you just mentioned where, down the road, if you do want to use worksheets and you think it's an option you might want to have, you do need to turn it on before you start the project and advance it to construction.
Good point. Yep. If you don't want to miss out on this great feature, definitely make sure you turn it on before you advance to construction. All right, next question. Who can set up worksheets? And this may be a two-part question, talking about the project level and then the overall account level.
I would recommend having your system administrator set up the worksheets at that global level. The reason is that once you make those item associations, those will carry over to each of your projects. So you can still make adjustments at the project level. So let's say there's some worksheets you don't want to use or there's differences in your items. You can make those changes at the project level. But I think overall, time-wise, it's better to first turn it on at the system level by your system administrator and then figure out each project from there.
All right, great. Well, we're getting tons of great questions from you all. We'll take one more and then we'll move on to the next topic. As a reminder, please know that any questions we don't get to today will be compiled and all registered participants will receive those in an email in about a week from now. So for our last question on worksheets, if I make a mistake in the measurements and need to recalculate the correct quantity, can I update the measurements or do I need to override?
So what I would recommend doing in that case is to go back to your daily report, click that edit button, get back to your item posting page, make the adjustments to the measurements there, and then Appia will update your quantities based on the worksheet. After you update it, Appia will update the math and change that quantity for you.
All right, Holly, thank you so much for answering these questions for our viewers. Let's keep things moving and continue to Query Builder. So why should you be using the query feature in Appia? Over the years, we've gotten many requests from customers about producing Appia reports in a specific format, whether it's for DOT reporting or for engineering firms reporting to their clients. Query will now allow users to build their own reports from existing project data in Appia in the format that they desire. It'll even allow you to preview that report before you export and then save that formatted report for future use. But enough talk. I'm going to pass the baton back over to Holly so that she can show us how you can build these custom formatted reports in Appia. Back to you, Holly.
Great, thank you. So this is another really good time saver in Appia, just like worksheets. Once you figure out how to use this feature, I think you're really going to like it. So again, let me take a minute and explain where I am. So I'm in a project within Appia, and I've clicked on the Query tab in this left navigation panel. Once you're here, at first you're not going to see much. These buttons are grayed out, and let me explain why. You have to first select which data set you want to pull your information from. So like Michael said, this feature is for custom reporting. Appia has a lot of great existing reports, but the existing reports may not meet all of your reporting needs. Everybody needs access to different types of information based on the needs of your organization. So Appia allows you to query two different sets of data, the payment items and the project items. I'm going to pick project items for this example. Once you pick project items and you go through and pick which data points you want to use for this custom report, you'll see these buttons will light up, and I'll show you that in just a couple minutes. But don't let that panic you if you're grayed out at first. That's what it's expected to do until you figure out what else you want in this report. So step one is to pick whether you want to look at those project items or those payment items. Step two is to pick the orientation of the actual report, so portrait or landscape. Most people use portrait, but that landscape option is available for you if that's helpful. The next part is selecting exactly which pieces of information you want to know and you want to see on this custom report. So you're going to do the header first. The header is that top section of the page, and it can be any of these pieces of information that you want. To include the information in the custom report, you can click on each of these data points, or you can drag and drop them over to the right-hand side of the screen. So I'm going to pick award percent complete, notice to proceed. You can pick whatever you want. That's kind of the beauty of this custom reporting feature. So for your header, once you've picked all the variables that you want to display on the header of the report, you're going to do the same thing for the body of the report. So there's lots of different data points you can select from in this left column. After you scroll through and kind of pick what you think will be helpful, same thing where you can drag them over or just click, and you'll see the items and the factors populate on this right-hand side of the screen. Once you have picked all of the things that you want to see in the report, if you click on this preview button, Appia is going to preview the information in the body of the report for you. So you can see how Appia has placed all of the available information for quantity paid, quantity pending, and quantity placed, which are the three that I picked for this example. That can be a helpful way to kind of see if this is what you had in mind when you're building this custom report. If not, make adjustments. You can delete items by clicking on that red X, and that's consistent throughout Appia, right? You guys know that deleting will remove things just like it does everywhere else, so that red X can be very helpful sometimes. You can add more factors if you want to. You can change the order. So this is designed to be as flexible as possible to get you to the information that you need to see. Once you feel pretty settled about this and you're happy about how it looks and the information that you've picked, if you scroll back up and hit that report button, Appia will generate the report for you, and you can then download that report, save it, open it, however that looks like for you. So the reports are available in PDF format, and you can also, if you want an Excel format, click this export button, and then you'll get an Excel version of the report. The great thing about Query Builder is that you can also save some of these custom reports that you build, so you're not reinventing the report every time you need the same information. So if you have information that you think you'll reuse again and again, or throughout the life of the project, you can do the same thing that we just did. So pick everything you want in your custom report, and then if you click Save under Actions, that report will then appear under these Use Saved Queries. So in my account, I have 2 saved queries, or 2 saved custom reports, Item Quantity Report and Underrun Report. If I click on these, you can see that Appia has saved all of the different variables that I've picked for this report, and then I can easily generate the report as needed. So that's how the Query Builder works. I encourage you guys to get in here and play with it. Try building your own custom report, add different information to your header, add different information to the body of the report, and just get a feel for what you think may or may not be helpful for your organization. All right, Michael, I'll give the reins back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Holly, for walking us through that. So let's field a few questions from our viewers about query. Starting off, the first question, if I've generated a new query and saved it for later, can I update the format of that saved query?
Yes, so if you load that saved query and then you end up needing to make changes, you can do so and then click Save again, and those changes will be reflected from then on.
Perfect, okay. Next question, if I save a query, can others view it other than me?
It is just per person per login, so you would have to create that custom report for each person. So everybody does have access to the same data points, but you would need to create that for each login.
Okay, thanks for that info. All right, next question. Is there a way to change the page layout if I add a lot of data columns to my custom report?
Absolutely. So you can move between that portrait option and that landscape option. If you have a ton of different columns, it will be better to use that landscape option. And you can always reorder the columns as well. So as your report kind of expands, if you keep needing to add different pieces of information, you can change that order and get the report looking exactly the way you want it to.
Perfect. All right. Let's see, next question. Will it generate and place a company logo on the report like when we process a pay application?
Absolutely. So if you have your logo and your organization name set up in your construction settings, then your custom reports will show that information as well.
Okay, great. Okay, we've got another one here. Can I use a query globally across any project? I think that's referring to saved queries. So if you save a query in one project, can you use that same query on another?
You would have to set it up for each project. So you could save the query in each of your projects, so it would be available in every project, but you would have to go through the setup for each project.
Okay, great. All right. This is another question coming in. Is there a way to use a date range for the custom report?
Unfortunately not. We don't have a date range available yet. That's something I can definitely add as an enhancement request. But currently you cannot do date ranges. It will be for whatever the life of the project was.
All right. We have time for one more question on query. Keep in mind, everyone, that if we don't get to your question today, we will be sending out that email with all the questions and answers from today's webinar. So for our last question, do saved queries update as the project progresses, or do I need to do something to refresh those numbers?
Absolutely, Appia will do that for you. So when you create the custom query, if you've saved it, when you load that in the Query Builder tab, Appia is not going to pull that data until you hit that report button. So it will be the most current information that is available in Appia when you generate that report.
All right. Thanks for that, Holly. Okay, so we are out of time for questions. Thank you so much to our viewers for all of those great questions today. Before we let you go, I will quickly recap all of the topics that we've covered in today's webinar. First, we looked at worksheets, which perform calculations for the inspector, saving them time when logging contract item quantities in the daily report. Inspectors simply enter their measurements into the pop-out worksheets window, and Appia crunches those numbers and then enters the resulting quantity into the item posting. Inspectors can manually override the worksheets calculation by typing in the desired quantity, which will apply a manual tag to that item for tracking. Don't forget to turn on that worksheets feature either at the project setup phase or on the overall global settings menu. We also looked at Query, which also allows users to custom build reports based on project and payment item data stored in Appia. This comes in handy when you need to report project status in a specific format. Query's simple drag and drop interface allows you to arrange the header and body information exactly how you want it to appear. And you can then save this custom built query for later use. For our next Appia webinar, we'll take a look at best practices for project closeout. Topics will include creating the final pay estimate, balancing your final change orders, and then exporting project data once the project is complete. An email invitation for this webinar will be sent out in a few weeks, and we'd love to have you all there. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We hope that you found this information on Appia's Worksheets and Query Builder useful for your projects. Please be on the lookout for an email with a survey following this webinar. The feedback that you provide will help us improve our future webinars. We have our contact information here on the final slide, so please feel free to reach out to us with any questions or comments. And have a great rest of your week, everyone, and stay safe. Bye.